Greetings, Earthlings. I'm introducing the Josh Hammer Show. We had a little bit of spotty internet.
Yes, Starlink. Elon Musk drops the ball again for us.
Yeah.
It may be Mark of the Beast Satan this shit. I don't trust him anymore. We recorded the episode with Josh Hammer and it dropped out like 11 times. It was very embarrassing.
Well, I thought it was the devil trying to keep us from, trying to keep Josh Hammer from saying what he knows.
It's probably
And it was
true.
like over a week ago, too, when the whole Candace, she called him what does she call him? A monster and all kinds of things.
Yeah, she's
just
unwell.
before she took her break. Yeah. I think it was doctor inspired. But anyway, Jake, you were able to cobble together.
Yeah, so what follows is a great interview. I was able to salvage the show. You'll see a couple weird hits where kind of the video jumps, but the conversation flows, and that's the most important thing.
Yeah, the devil was really after me that day, and I was praying, come on, Lord, get this Elon Musk internet up. And because it's really filled with a lot of truth and a lot of warning, too, for American citizens.
No, it's a great episode. And Josh Hammer, for those of you who don't know, was in that Charlie Kirk thread that Candace was saying that, Charlie was going to turn his back on Israel. And she's been going after him. And it was more timely when we filmed it. We didn't do an episode last week because we have a big deal closing we're not allowed to talk about.
Yep.
But we're back. Thank you for your support. Enjoy this episode with Josh Hammer. And then that's it. We're back on track, right?
Yeah.
Anything else? So you see.
No. Okay. I hope you enjoy it because it's, it's getting so that if you are wanting to tell the truth about the Western world being under attack, you're under heavy censorship from our overlords as well as our underlords. So we hope you get a lot of information out of this broadcast today, and thanks for tuning in. Greetings, Earthlings and humans and all other beings, whatever you got. Welcome here. We've got a great show today. Oh, I forgot. Also, welcome to animals, the most intelligent of all life forms, in my opinion. Because animals don't need to bullshit themselves to feel the joy of life. Welcome to the Roseanne Barr Podcast. A banger of a show today. I'm so excited. This is the first time I've really been so nervous that I'm shaking to have a guest. I'm excited because you know how I love to talk to geniuses. The guest today is just an encyclopedic genius. He's got so much information in his brain. It's astounding. But also he is somebody who is in the middle of so many things and so pertinent to what's going on today. And I am so happy to have the author of Israel and Civilization. He has his own podcast, the host of the Josh Hammer Show, senior editor at large for Newsweek. Hi, Josh Hammer.
Roseanne, longtime fan, first time caller, as they say. So delighted to connect with you, and thanks for having me on. I really do appreciate it.
We're so excited to have you. There's like so many intersections of things you are a part of and speaking for, and also victim of so many things that are going on. I can't even begin to think where I should approach first. But of course, I want to go right into the whole Candace Owens rabbit hole, I guess it is. It goes so deep and it keeps going. And of course, that involves your friend, Charlie Kirk, and his assassination and how it's really shaking this country. It's shaking MAGA. It's shaking everything America believes in, down to America's soul, I fear. And you're right in the middle of that, and the Candace fallout of her being everything that the holiday of Sukkot is about, the Jewish holiday of Sukkot, which is so much about the power of evil speech. And I want to get into that with you too. But so there you are. you're a friend of Charlie Kirk. Will you start there?
Yeah, sure thing. So I knew Charlie for some years. I first got to know him when I became the opinion editor at Newsweek. I still work in Newsweek, but do some slightly different things, including my show. But when I first joined the company, I joined as the opinion editor. When I joined there back in 2020, Charlie was one of the conservative columnists at Newsweek that I inherited. So I first got to know him and his main kind of day-to-day manager, who is also the executive producer of the Charlie Kirk Show, Andrew Colvett. Andrew's been the main host of the Charlie Kirk Show since Charlie was assassinated over a month ago. So I first got to know Charlie and Andrew through my capacity as their editor, effectively, at Newsweek. But I started to get to know Charlie better. He first invited me to speak at a Turning Point USA conference, maybe about a year after that, about a year after I started as the opinion editor at Newsweek. So that would have been 2021. And we kind of just got to know each other better and better over the 4 years that followed even that. And over the final year and a half or so of his life, we had gotten to the point where we were talking on a seemingly daily basis. I don't want to exaggerate, where we weren't having hour-long phone calls every day, but we were in daily contact, right? Whether it was in a individual messaging or this WhatsApp chat, this small WhatsApp chat that has now become the topic of international conspiracy, thanks to well-known conspiracists Candace Owens. Charlie himself actually organized that chat, by the way. There have been a lot of people saying, oh, the Jews were trying to control Charlie. No, Charlie literally started that chat. I mean, he was one who personally added me, who personally added the other people there. So, yeah, we were basically in daily touch because we cared about a lot of the very same things. Charlie was a religious Christian. I'm a religious Jew, and we cared immensely about Jewish-Christian relations, about fighting off rising anti-Semitism, including within certain pockets of the American right among Gen Z and millennial right-wingers in particular. He was passionate about trying to fight that off. He was passionate about trying to ensure that the United States and Israel had a viable relationship, because he was a staunch, lifelong supporter of not just the Jewish people, but the Jewish state of Israel. And I last saw him in person. The last two times I saw him in person, Roseanne, the first time would have been in July. So I did a debate on Israel against a not particularly funny libertarian quote-unquote comedian by the name of Dave Smith. So Dave Smith and I did a debate, which ends up actually being, tragically in hindsight, genuinely tragically, ends up being the final event that Charlie Kirk ever hosted at a Turning Point USA conference, because that ended the conference. So that was in July. Then I saw him again a few weeks later at this quote-unquote influencer retreat, 35, 40 people in the Hamptons. That retreat has also been the source of some controversy from the same provocateurs like Candace Owens. So that was the last time that I saw Charlie in person, was in the Hamptons in early August. I actually took a copy of my book, and I signed it for him. He told me he would read it, and the rest, unfortunately, as they say, is history, and here we are.
I was really interested in, it seems to me, Charlie's growing attraction to Judaism, because, he was talking all the time about keeping Shabbat. And I was really amazed at that, because I have so many Christian friends who also are, have come to keeping Shabbat, Friday to Saturday night. And I just love that about Charlie, because I feel that that's also a turning point for a lot of Christians to understand where Christianity, its roots. And, and then I was talking to people saying, well, the very definition of a Jew is one who keeps Shabbat. So I jokingly said, well, that makes Charlie a Jew and gives him the right to complain about Jews, because that's what Jews do, is complain about Jews and say, oh, the other Jews are not saying the right thing, so I'm out. Which is how I interpreted his texting conversation about, well, if they're not going to control me, because that's what all Jews say about other Jews, right?
Yeah, look, first of all, I'm not sure that a Jew is defined by keeping Shabbat. I myself started keeping Shabbat within the past couple of years or so, and I found it to be a positively life-changing experience. So I'm a staunch proponent of it. You're right that Charlie did keep his version of the Sabbath. He turned his phone off exactly when religious Jews turn their phone off from Friday night to Saturday night. He actually wrote a whole book on this. In fact, I hope that this book is going to be posthumously released. It's set to be released this December. It's skyrocketed actually on Amazon.com after he was horrifically killed. It's called "Stop in the Name of God." And this is someone, Charlie Kirk, who used to study Torah with Dennis Prager, our colleague at Salem Media. Charlie would quote the Hebrew Bible, what Christians call the Old Testament, over and over and over again. He would quote everything from Genesis to the book of Psalms to the book of Proverbs.
I heard him talking about Bereshit, and I was so impressed. And I was like, this is a very special human being. And I was just so impressed by that. And that's why I am trying to talk to you about this, because the evil tongue being spoken against him and his soul really upsets me.
Well, it upsets me greatly too. Look, he really cared. I mean, it's kind of an irony, and perhaps a sad irony of our times, Roseanne, that the number one person who helped defend the Jewish people on college campuses, on these incredible hostile settings for the past 2 years, give or take, was this young evangelical Christian. I mean, Charlie really did more. He really did more than anyone else in America when it comes to two things. One is keeping the Nick Fuentes, Groyper, outright neo-Nazis decidedly at bay.
Look, if you keep a handgun for self-defense, you probably deal with 1 or 2 headaches. It's either locked up somewhere we can't reach when you need it, or it's just sitting there for anybody to grab. Neither one is great. That's why StopBox USA made the StopBox Pro. It fixes both problems without all the nonsense. No keys, no batteries, no smart tech that stops working when you need it most. Just a simple mechanical box that opens fast.
Have you seen how this works, actually? This is it.
Yeah, you showed me.
Yeah, what's cool about it, so I actually have like a gun safe in our room, and it's a kind of pain in the ass. You got to do the codes. They designed this. I've been following this company for years. They actually designed this that you can do it by feel. So it's these 3. You can do it in your sleep with your eyes closed. So if you hear a noise in the middle of the night, look at that.
Cool.
It busts up, but a kid cannot open it. It's impossible to open.
Well,
It's not just that. You have to press down. It takes a little practice. You press down to your code, and then you have to open it without doing this, because if you try this, even with the code, it won't open. So it's pressure, and it's a whole technical skill. Bam.
It's secure, quick, and it actually makes sense. With StopBox USA, you don't have to pick between being safe and being ready. You finally get both. Plus, it's made right here in America.
USA.
For a limited time, our listeners get 15% off at StopBox when you use the code Roseanne at checkout. Head to StopBoxUSA.com and use code Roseanne for 15% off of your entire order. After you purchase, they will ask you where you heard about them, and please support our show and tell them our show sent you.
People could disagree with Charlie's decisions to platform certain individuals. I certainly did not agree with Tucker Carlson continuing to appear, but whatever we may or may not disagree on some of that, he really did do more than anyone to keep the truly, truly gutter, horrible stuff decidedly on the fringe. That's point 1. 2 is he really did more in these settings to defend the Jewish people, not just Israel, but genuinely defend the Jewish people on campuses. Charlie Kirk.
Judaism.
Yes, exactly. He was asked over and over and over again about the Talmud. I mean, it is absolutely insane that America in the year 2024, 2025 saw this young evangelical Protestant placed in the position of having to be the grand defender of one of Judaism's sacred texts, the Talmud. It's insane. And I said that to Charlie's face, by the way. I said, thank you for all you're doing. And we discussed, by the way, we talked about how we should respond there. He was like, does this make sense if I explain the Talmud like this there? We talked about the difference between Ashkenazi and Sephardic Jews. I mean, we had all these conversations. But I said to him once, I was like, God bless you. Thank you for what you're doing. But this is truly nuts. This is truly nuts that you are having to be placed in this position there. But he handled it with aplomb. He was proud to do it. He was not just happy to do it. He was genuinely proud to do it, because his Christianity, Roseanne, fundamentally, his Christianity was the kind of Christianity that founded America. It was the Christianity of George Washington, of John Adams, of Alexander Hamilton, and so forth. It was a Christianity that saw itself not as Tucker Carlson might see it, as kind of an offshoot, but he saw it as directly rooted in the Hebrew Bible, in the Old Testament there. His Christianity was the exact same Christianity as the Christianity that produced, for instance, the Liberty Bell in Philadelphia, the Liberty Bell which has the book of Leviticus inscribed on the outside. His Christianity was the same kind of Christianity that saw Benjamin Franklin propose that the Great Seal of the United States be Moses parting the Red Sea with the Israelites there, the ultimate symbol of the Exodus. So Charlie's Christianity was very much something of a throwback to a bygone era, and he really cared about making sure that American Christianity, American Christians remained good friends of the Jews. He tried to model that very much in his personal day-to-day life, and that took the very tangible form of befriending Jews like myself.
He was a righteous Gentile in that he defended the nation of Israel. He defended the Torah. He defended the Jewish nation. And, I hate to see his legacy in what I considered that he was almost the savior of the soul of America, which is being torn asunder by evil speech, by evil deeds. And I think it's on purpose, because America is the last stronghold between, the entire world losing all of its human rights. And that's how I feel about America. And I feel like Charlie was, even to say that he was just for Turning Point USA is to kind of, I'm not using the right words, but to denigrate his real effect. He was saving the soul of America. And I see why the enemy took him out, because he was such a stalwart pillar of everything that we're fighting. And, I was so horrified that it happened in my hometown. I'm from Utah. And, that it happened when it did. And, I hope we get to the bottom of it. I hope we do, but just his removal at such an important crossroads in our country and the world history, especially for America and Western values. It's just horrifying. And then to see his name dragged through the mud and saying he wasn't what he was, that makes me so upset. So that's why I was so happy to get you on here today, because it's just important that we remember him, that we as Jews remember him for what a spiritual giant he was to us. I feel
Roseanne, let me tell you, my wife was raised here in Florida where we live now, but she was born in Israel. She's Israeli. Most of her family still lives over in Israel. And I heard from her family after Charlie was assassinated. A lot of her family reached out to me, and they said, like, are you aware of the mourning, of the national mourning that is happening in the state of Israel after the murder of Charlie Kirk? I mean, you had the mayor of well-known cities, Netanya, I believe, a very well-known suburb of Tel Aviv, which named a very prominent public square, a park after Charlie Kirk. There were murals that were drawn in his honor. So, I mean, this is a country. I mean, I don't think I met a single Jew, a single rabbi, anyone who was anything other than devastated by this news. So, I mean, that makes this whole attempt to engage in this loathsome anti-Semitic driven revisionist history, this whole information operation, and that's what it is. It is an information operation trying to bamboozle us, to gaslight us into thinking that Charlie Kirk was something other than what he was, which was a staunch friend of the Jewish people in Israel. That's what makes this all the more repulsive, because They don't have, there's no evidence. I mean, do they have an evidence of any Jew celebrating his assassin? No, we were literally all in tears. I started crying on my show. It's the first time I've ever recorded an episode of my show where I couldn't control my emotions. I just started crying. I mean, like, it was painful. I mean, not someone who was just so pro-America, pro-Western civilization, but a personal friend. It's the first time I've ever had a friend murdered, let alone a friend murdered in this high profile of a fashion. I mean, the highest profile political assassination in America since MLK Jr. and RFK back in 1968. And it happened to a personal friend. So the whole thing is just, it's unconscionably awful. But
And
the
then-
reason...
Yeah.
Go ahead, sorry.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, the reason that I think, I'll end on this, the reason that I think that these malicious actors, the Candace Owenses of the world, the reason that they're engaging in this revisionist history is because they are trying to make a play for the future of Charlie Kirk's legacy and how
Yes.
he will be remembered, and specifically the direction of Turning Point USA. I think that is cynically where they went.
I think so too, because they think that the groypers are the way that are the wave of the future, don't they? They think Nick Fuentes is the next leader of the minds of the American youth, don't they? And they're trying to head that off or get a piece of it.
Yes, that is essentially the wager they're making. When Candace Owens and Nick Fuentes spar, as they sometimes do, they're essentially competing for market share. They're essentially competing for market share in the fringe gutter of the. I mean, I hesitate to even call it the right, because there's nothing particularly rightist or conservative about.
It's not conservative at all. In fact, if you really listen to them, they sound like the radical left of the Democrats, don't they?
100%. Honestly, I listen. Not that I spend I don't listen to every Tucker show start to finish. I mean, I would probably be in the crazy ward if I did. But whenever I pause to listen to a clip of Tucker Carlson these days, I struggle to identify a single issue that he is genuinely conservative on, other than, I guess, immigration. I think he still believes in national borders. Okay, maybe. But on virtually every other issue, I mean, Roseanne, he had this crazy recent episode where he's essentially offering apologia for Sharia law.
I know.
He's talking about how it's amazing in Abu Dhabi and the Emirates. Look, I've been to Abu Dhabi. It's a very pretty city. That doesn't mean Sharia law is good. He's saying it's amazing in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. I mean, is he making common cause with the Islamists? I mean, is that what his pay masters want? Yeah,
absolutely. He thinks it's great that you can beat your wife if she doesn't, submit properly and fast enough. That's what he's saying, and that upsets me greatly. It just about makes me go absolutely off the handle. I can't believe he's saying that. But actually, Sharia law is based on, fiefdom. So he's a billionaire, and I guess he's joined that class where they dig fiefdom. They dig that pyramid with like 300 sheiks and, people at the top, and everybody else is a serf. So I guess that's what he's really talking about. And it's just so anti-American. And then he turns around and says, America first. What? Islam is an imperialist, globalist ideal. It's an ideology of global. It isn't America first. And Sharia law, that isn't anything to do with America first. I mean, he talks out of both sides of his mouth, as does Candace Owens, but I think they're globalists.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of the great ironies of our time, right? Is that people that are essentially taking the China, Russia, Iran, North Korea line,
right?
Somehow call themselves America first.
Yeah.
And look, I mean, every individual is different. I mean, Candace Owens, for whatever it's worth, my read on her is that she actually has gone down the Louis Farrakhan Nation of Islam rabbit hole. I think she probably went down that rabbit hole around the same time as Kanye West, if I had to guess.
Yes, absolutely. And Dave Chappelle, too. He's down there.
Yes. So that's my read on her. Tucker, I think opinions may vary. I think at least at a bare minimum, something that's going on with Tucker. I mean, to be clear, it's very hard to conclude that Tucker is anything other than an anti-Semite at this point. I mean, I think he's probably the most dangerous anti-Semite in American history. But I'm not sure it started there. It might have started as just a genuine hatred of American elites, American ruling class. The thing is, when you convince yourself that the American elites and the ruling class are so rotten, eventually you risk getting to a point where you also convince yourselves that America itself is rotten. You essentially conflate the lies that have been told by the American ruling class with America being a force for evil itself. So that's how you kind of paradoxically, I think, talk yourself getting into this very bizarre place where you're offering a purported...
But when you're friends with Hunter Biden, as he is and
right.
was, maybe you're like a double spy when you're in there with the ruling class and you want to have a show. Maybe you're like, oh boy, I hate the ruling class. And then you go to cocktails with them.
Right.
I mean, you always have some kind of duplicity, don't you? So are you ever really honest?
No, I mean, look, Tucker Carlson's the guy who used to wear bow ties on TV. Okay, I mean, he comes from a very upscale background. San Francisco Bay Area. I mean, he is no one's idea of someone who grew up in Appalachia riding a tractor or anything like that. I mean, so this whole kind of, I wear a plaid shirt and I speak for the people shtick is just that. It is a shtick, and I don't think anyone at this point necessarily is really buying it. But again, whether it's him, whether it's Candace, whether it's any of these other provocateurs, one of Tucker's acolytes is this little execrable, loathsome scoundrel named Kurt Mills. He's the executive director, whatever his title is, of the publication calling itself the American Conservative. There's nothing particularly conservative about them. I mean, they call themselves America First, but if you look at the social media accounts that oftentimes are boosting their content, so I noticed this with Tucker recently. Tucker had on that nun, the nun who had the mustache. I mean, okay, whatever. So the mustachioed nun goes on the Tucker Carlson show and invariably starts accusing Israel of genocide and famine and all these other various libels and slanders. And I decided to go on social media and try to scan what accounts are reposting or quote tweeting it. And it's like Al-Quds and like a lot of Qatar, Palestinian, Arab, Russian accounts, Chinese accounts there. I saw another clip that Dinesh D'Souza posted on social media this week or last week of this former Muslim Brotherhood jihadi who's going on a podcast over in London or the UK, somewhere else, and is just saying that Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson and Marjorie Taylor Greene and these others are literally doing their work for them. They are literally doing their PR work for them. So it's nuts. It's absolutely nuts.
Yeah.
But it's so convoluted. Yeah, just a minute, Jake. It's so convoluted, and they really do a great job of masking it to, purposely lead Americans away from the truth. They purposely are confusing, and that makes me really angry because, I mean, that's just downright evil to confuse Americans and to get them to go against their best interests.
That's it. That's the goal, though. Like literally, they have numerous goals. I think one of their goals is to just divide MAGA and try to supplant it with something else entirely. But one of their goals is actually exactly what you said. It's a very important point. I think one of their deliberate, intentional goals is to induce mass brain rot, is to actually make people question the most basic facts, to make people question, oh, is the sky blue? Oh, I'm not sure if it's blue, actually. Maybe it's orange, maybe it's chemtrails, I don't know. I mean, they're literally trying to make you question your sanity. The original definition of gaslighting, of course, is to question your very own mental sanity. Because if they're able to do that, then they feel that they are able to pick up market share and just say the crazy stuff imaginable, such as what Candace Owens has accused me of doing when it comes to Charlie Kirk. I mean, but all that's...
She accused you of participating in his assassination.
She did, and this all went down over the Jewish holiday of Sukkot. I was offline observing the Yom Tov. I had some come up to me at synagogue and say, you're gonna be in for something when you turn your phone back on. I said, okay. And pretty insane, to put it mildly. I mean, demented, evil, satanic, demonic. I mean, lunatic. I mean, insert your adjective or noun of choice. Roseanne, among the things that I am is I'm a lawyer by background. I clerked in a federal court of appeals. I've spoken in Harvard Law School, Yale Law School. I know a thing or two about the law, okay? And I'm speaking with other lawyers, and it seems to me like we have a potentially very serious defamation case on our hands. We will see if I decide to pull the trigger and go forward. I'm still at the stage where I'm mulling it there. But what she has said to me is so utterly preposterous, so utterly evil, so clearly putting myself and my family's security in harm's way. We've been talking with law enforcement and all that there. It's just so incredibly beneath anything that I can possibly say about it there, that yes, we are very seriously considering litigation, and I suppose stay tuned for that. Back in the day, before America liberalized its involuntary commitment laws back in the 1960s, this is absolutely the kind of thing that would have put you in the loony bin, in the mental ward, and perhaps that's the kind of thing that should happen at this point yet again.
I think so too, because when you're calling an entire people demonic, I mean, I feel like we do a class action suit against her when she's calling every living Jew a demonic a demonic presence on earth.
Yeah.
That's beyond, that's Hitler.
It's literally Nazi rhetoric, correct?
It is. And I mean, that is satanic. I mean, America fought a war against that. Our grandfathers here fought and died against that, to defeat that. And that she sits there and repeats that is just such, evil speech. And in Judaism, we try hard not to speak evil speech, because we know that arouses the whole satanic presence to come against the person who speaks it. So I'm always looking at her, and I feel sorry for her, and I actually pray for her deliverance from being a captive to that. And I do believe she is a captive to that. I think her soul has been overtaken, and I do pray for her to be released, because no one can actually say those kind of things, and I just don't think God will stand for it. I don't think he will stand for that. People who come to destroy the soul of America at this time. I don't believe it. And at this time, I'd like to switch into all that stuff we've already said, but about the peace deal in Israel and the release of the hostages. How are you feeling about that? I mean, it is a great thing, isn't it? The release of the hostages.
Well, it's beautiful. It's an absolutely beautiful thing. It's frankly something that I didn't necessarily see coming. I had somewhat written off this last tranche of hostages as a likely casualty of the war. I genuinely did not see it coming. But to the Trump administration's credit, they did see it coming. Roseanne, my wife and I went to Trump Doral, his big golf resort in the Miami area, on the 1-year anniversary of October 7th. So that would have been last October 7, 2024, about a month before the election. And I remember President Trump saying that we have not forgotten about the hostages. We're not going to leave any stone unturned until we get them. And that, sure enough, has been their exact mentality in the White House ever since they came back to power in January. So it's just a beautiful, beautiful story. 2 years to the day from the Jewish holiday of Simchat Torah 2 years ago, when the massacre happened. And to your point, it's hard not to look at these sorts of things and say that there is a divine hand at play here. What I will say, though, is when it comes to the future steps of this arrangement in Gaza, I'm suspicious. I'm skeptical, naturally, that Hamas is going to just lay down its arms. I'm not entirely sure exactly what the enforcement mechanism is going to be to ensure that happens. I have a lot of questions when it comes to all of that. But for now, this is a time simply to celebrate. This is a beautiful, beautiful thing we've seen here.
It is so miraculous to see how God works for peace in the world, how the hand of God moves in the world, is how I'm seeing it. To see how the United States, America, moves in that direction too, specifically Trump. What a mind he has. And that's why it's so upsetting to see people who used to be, like Candace and Tucker and all these other people who used to really back Trump and understand what a brilliant mind he has and how imperative it was to get him elected for peace in the world, for a new direction, for, defeating the real enemies of America and what America stands for. Now to turn on him at this hour when he has already brought so many peace treaties to the world, and he understands that this is a new time in the world, that America can leave behind, old programs and bring something new and better, and that they would turn on him in this hour is upsetting to me. But I think that this peace treaty today is just proof of what a great president we have. And I just encourage people to stay the course. And I think that everything will come out, and we'll understand everything sooner or later as it builds into, remaking America into the country that Americans sent their children to fight and die for. I think,
Roseanne, I think back to the 2016 presidential primary a lot. I think back to what they said about Donald Trump back when he first ran for president. And if you think back then, they said that he was a warmonger, that he was going to start World War III. Frankly, a lot of folks were actually saying that about him as recently as June. I mean, that's what Tucker Carlson was basically saying when it came to the lead up to the Israel-Iran war and the limited American intervention in the form of the B-2 bombers. But people from the left to the quote-unquote right have accused President Trump of being a crypto-fascist and a warmonger ever since his first days of running for president. But has there ever been a more pro-peace, pro-global stability president in recent American history? I think the answer is no. I think the answer is very clearly no. I mean, whether it is Thailand and Cambodia, whether it's India and Pakistan, two nuclear powers, by the way, India and Pakistan, that could have gotten really bad. Donald Trump got a ceasefire ASAP. Rwanda and the Congo and sub-Saharan Africa, that was a really bloody tribal conflict that he got a ceasefire there. Armenia and Azerbaijan, my goodness, this thing totally flew under the radar. I was there. I was in Armenia. I was on the Azeri border. I saw this conflict firsthand on a trip I was on about 2 years ago. Extremely bitter conflict going on 3.5, 4 decades, ethnic, religious, sectarian conflict, multiple wars. I think it was in August, Donald Trump had the heads of both Armenia and Azerbaijan sitting at a table, clinking champagne glasses, toasting to the Nobel Peace Prize. I mean, my God. I mean, there's literally peace deals happening left and right. At the same time, the Democratic Party, which once upon a time was the party of the Kent States College protests or George McGovern in 1972, the party of opposing the Vietnam War, the Peacenik Party, they've been the party of aggressive war when it comes to the Russia-Ukraine theater for much of the past few years. And they're also just galling hypocrites because when it comes to Gaza, they've been calling for ceasefire now. Okay, guess what? We have a ceasefire. We literally now have a ceasefire, and where are they? They're nowhere to be found.
You know me, I stopped trusting anything coming out of big food and big pharma a long time ago. And here's one more reason why. I don't buy beef from grocery chains anymore. Think about it. They couldn't get everybody to line up for them jabs 4 to 6 times a year. So what's the next move? Easy. Sneak it into the food we eat every single day. And where does most of America get their food? The grocery store. Right now, places like Costco and Walmart are selling beef that's been injected with mRNA.
It's terrifying.
And here's the kicker. They don't have to label it. They don't have to tell you, and the media sure as hell isn't going to warn you. That's why the wellness company launched Wellness Farms, and it's the only beef I trust. 100% grain-fed and finished. No mRNA, no vaccines, nor hormones. Just clean, real beef from regenerative American family farms. This is literally farm to table. No middlemen, no mystery, just the rancher, the butcher, and the UPS truck bringing it to your door. And if you've seen those mystery meat videos online, yeah, I'm not risking that. Your health and your DNA are worth protecting. So take back control and eat food you can actually trust. Go to twc.health/RB and use the code RB to save up to $30 and get free shipping on your Wellness Farms order. Jake, what did you want to ask? Because I cut you off before.
Yeah, well, I'm so sorry about the internet. This is driving us all crazy. So thank you for sticking with us, Josh. My question was back in the Candace days. I know we've moved on to the peace treaty, but I just had a question. You guys know more about this than I do, so I'm asking both of you. But it seems to me that the Candace and Tucker thing that nobody's talking about is the Catholic bent on it, because I saw some leaked text between Candace and Hannah Faulkner, a friend of mine, and she was talking about she's just over the lies of Judeo-Christianity. And I just found
Candace
that,
says that doesn't exist.
yeah, is it really just a market share push for Turning Point, or do you think it's something far more sinister? Like, she thinks Jews have sort of clutched on to her Lord and Savior and were this thing that she has this claw off the back to save the true Christian thing. I feel like there's something in her that's bigger than
This is Candace you're talking about, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, okay.
Tucker, because Tucker, although he's not a Catholic, it's that nun that was on the mustache.
Yeah. No, Tucker had this absurd and amazing in a bad sense, and awesome in a bad sense show. He had this episode back in August where he had this pastor on a show. The pastor's been doing campus ministry for 4 decades. And Tucker made an astounding confession. Tucker, who called himself a Christian, has this pastor on his show. And he says, you know what? I read the Old Testament for the first time last year. Oh, really? Oh, really? You read the old, dude, I mean, you're in your, like, what, 50s, or however old Tucker is? You call yourself a Christian? You read 75% roughly of your Bible for the first time last year? So Tucker goes on, he goes, I read the Old Testament for the first time, and I was struck by the violence and the murder and the genocide. Now, the pastor, the guest, to his great credit, did not take the bait at all. But I gave a speech, Roseanne, Jake, a week or two after this episode at the National Conservatism Conference in Washington, D.C. My speech was actually on the Hebrew Bible. And I began my speech by talking about how what Tucker said is not just ignorant, which literally by definition it is grossly ignorant. It's actually heretical. It is heresy on Christianity's own terms for the following reason, which is that there was a 2nd century Christian theologian called Marcion of Sinope, who in the very early days of the church he argued that the God of the Old Testament, the Jewish God of the Hebrew Bible, is not Jesus, is not the God of the New Testament there, and he was universally condemned as being heretical. This is literally to this day recognized as a form of Christian heresy called Marcionism. But Tucker Carlson is a Marcionite. He is literally a Christian heretic on Christianity's own terms. Candace Owens, who calls herself a Catholic there, makes this very heavy-handed argument. I mean, part of this whole conversation, which is particularly, I find offensive, not as a Jew, but as a friend of many Catholics, is that Candace has also been saying, oh, Charlie Kirk was on the verge of converting to Catholicism. I mean, what are you implying exactly? She seems to be implying that Catholicism and the Catholic Church give you license to hate Jews, give you license to just bash Israel. I mean, maybe that would have been the case for part of the church's history. It definitely has not been the case since Vatican II in 1965.
Well, she's not. She doesn't like Vatican II.
For sure.
She's the Catholic, like Mel Gibson, that hates that.
For sure. No, she's definitely not a fan of Vatican II. Look, we can kind of go like Bible verse by Bible verse. I mean, there's definitely some stuff, in the New Testament. The Gospel of Matthew comes to mind. There are obviously some lines that, taken out of context, can be read in a not friendly light to the Jewish people. There's also a lot of other lines, Romans 9 through 11. I mean, to be clear, I'm an observant Jew. I'm not a Christian theologian, but there are plenty of lines, Romans 9 to 11, that seem to be very, very, very pro-Jewish as well. I think it's actually a lot simpler than that, Roseanne. It's a lot simpler than that. As I said earlier, literally 75% of the Christian Bible is the Hebrew Bible. Roughly 25% is the New Testament. It is actually a much statistically, numerically, like literally number of pages and verses, much smaller portion than the Old Testament. Like, we quite literally share much more in common than we don't. We gave to the world all of the beautiful political theory of the Torah, of the 5 books of Moses there. So much of what we take for granted today, this is actually a big part of my book, Israel and Civilization, by the way, is I talk about how so much of what we take for granted today when it comes to day-to-day ethics and morals, when it comes to love your neighbor as yourself, when it comes to Genesis 1:27, the notion that man is made in the image of God, therefore we all have equal moral dignity. You don't get the 14th Amendment to the Constitution if you don't have Genesis 1:27. You talk about political structure, separation of powers. That's right there, actually, in the Hebrew Bible as well. I mean, all of this goes back to the shared inheritance of Judaism and Christianity. When people use the phrase Judeo-Christian, that's what they're talking about. That's why I continue to defend the term to this day.
Well, because it's the same source.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't understand people who are, dedicated to destroying their own source. I mean, that seems weird to me.
It's evil. It's positively evil. And it's just a sad reality of the times that there are some people. I mentioned this clown earlier in our conversation, this guy, Kurt Mills, who's like a Tucker acolyte. This kid is the executive director of a publication calling itself the American Conservative. At the conference I just mentioned, the National Conservatism Conference, there was a bar in the middle, and I wasn't there with him, but I had numerous friends tell me that they overheard him getting a little sloppy with his drinks, and he was getting a little loose-lipped. And he apparently told people there listening in, I hear this from multiple people, so I think it's pretty corroborated, that he said that his number one goal, his literally number one goal of the second Trump administration is to help to drive a wedge between the U.S. and Israel and a wedge between Jews and Christians, between evangelicals and Jews. Now, this guy edits a publication called The American Conservative. You might think that his top goal would be rising wages, or bringing jobs back home, or securing the southern border, or deterring communist China, or stopping the fentanyl crisis. No, this guy's number one goal is driving a wedge between evangelicals and Jews. I think that says everything that you need to know.
Yeah,
and Candace and Tucker have done that too.
Why do they want a wedge between believers in America and Israel? Why do you think they want that? Wouldn't that just serve a caliphate?
Yes, that definitely would run the risk of a Middle East-wide caliphate. And to be clear, some of them seem to want that, actually. When you actually, yeah, I mean, this kind of gets back to our Tucker conversation. Tucker offering various forms of Sharia law apologia. Oh, Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, first world city. Sharia law, clearly not that bad. I mean, this is probably the reason, too. I mean, Tucker Carlson flew all the way to Romania to interview Andrew Tate. Candace Owens, a noted apologist for Andrew Tate. Andrew Tate, a horrific human being when it comes to the credible allegations of sex trafficking and all of that. Also a convert to Islam. Andrew Tate is someone who called Yahya Sinwar, the mastermind of October 7th, a hero. Andrew Tate is someone who has called for London, England, to be conquered in the name of an Islamist caliphate, in the name of Sharia law. So if you really kind of scratch the surface and look deep in the bowels of some of these wings of the, you call the quote-unquote far right, whatever you want. I don't actually like that label. A lot of them seem to be implying, Roseanne, that Christianity's true friend is not Judaism but Islam, which is
that's
really
it. Exactly.
Yeah, which is really astounding. It's historically ignorant, to put it mildly. I mean, there was that whole Crusades thing, it was about 1,000 years ago. There was the siege of Vienna from the Ottoman Turks in the middle of the 17th century. I mean, Christianity and Islam have a very complicated history. I mean, it was literally the First and Second Barbary Wars during the Jefferson and Madison presidencies that ultimately galvanized the U.S. really build up its navy in earnest. These wars against literal Muslim pirates. But nonetheless, that is a very fringe argument that you see out there with increased frequency.
Yeah, and you see the Catholic Church really participating in it too, because UN Agenda 30 calls for a one world religion, and it seems to be Chrislam. When you look at the way that they are coming together more and more, especially in the Arab world, Chrislam is the destruction of Christianity and Judaism, and they're morphing into this kind of hybrid religion, which like Jake and I have discussed that both of them are actually Zionists. They just want a Zion that's Judenrein.
Well, look, I mean, I have a lot of, religious Catholic friends there. I mean, I'm not a particularly huge fan
I'm not talking about traditional. I'm talking about a whole new thing that they're working towards, which was kind of pioneered in Jeremiah Wright's church.
Right. Well, Jeremiah Wright, I mean, a vowed enemy of America, a vowed enemy of the Jews, an anti-white bigot, frankly, Jeremiah Wright, contemptible stuff. Look, it seems to me that many of our contemporary conversations today, and you were just talking about globalism or universalism. A lot of it really does boil down to nationalism versus universalism, and this is one of the many. To me, Roseanne, this is literally the reason. If I were to tell you what is the number one reason that anti-Semitism, that hatred of Jewish people and hatred of Judaism, the number one reason this is the bigotry that simply will not die, the chameleon of all bigotries, the going back 4,000 to 5,000 years, I will tell you what that reason is. The reason is because the very concept of the Jew and the enduring nature of the Jew is a reminder of particularism, a refusal to be subsumed and to be homogenized into the universalist masses. Going all the way back to the days of antiquity when it comes to the Roman Empire and various empires back then, whether it comes to contemporary softer forms of tyranny such as the United Nations and the World Economic Forum, or even harsher forms of tyranny, the Jew always persists. The Jew always persists. The Jew always clings to his God, to his ways, the mitzvot, the commandments, and so forth there. And Israel, of course, is the Jew of the nations. They will not be subsumed into the globalist masses either. By the way, there's actually a biblical predicate for this. I would argue that the original model of the nation state is actually right. It's found right there in the Bible. To me, it's actually where King David unites the tribes of Israel in Jerusalem, announcing a united kingdom there. He had no extraterritorial ambitions for the very simple reason that the borders were defined by God himself. He wasn't trying to invade anywhere else there. It was a nation state. It had borders, and it was tribes united there. That's the nation state. Right. So if you hate particularism, if you hate nationalism, then you are more likely to be anti-Semitic than not. Certainly, Islam is very much a globalizing, hegemonic, universalist ideology. The Catholic Church, back in the day, a long time ago, very much had that as well. You definitely hear snippets of that as well, from people like Pope Francis, right, as well there. But globalism, unfortunately, is one of the enemies of the Jewish people that simply will not go away, it seems.
Yeah. The Jews are the inconvenient truth to all empires.
Yes, exactly right.
What would you say to the people that call us the globalists? Because one of the things I always hear is when Tucker says, I'm just anti-globalization, they're like, that's anti-Semitism, because he's really referring to the Jews as globalists. So that's kind of the opposite of what you're saying.
That's the cosmopolitan Jews, because a lot of Jews are globalists. There's so many different kinds of Jews, and I always resent when they say the Jews rather than some Jews.
Right.
They always think there's only one kind of Jew when there are so many different kinds of Jews.
Right. Yeah. Look, some people some people definitely do use globalist as a buzzword for Jew, the same way that some people use neocon as a buzzword for Jew. But these are real words that have real meanings. I mean, globalist, it also has a real meaning. Neoconservative also has a real meaning. So it very much just depends on the intention as to how it's used. I mean, I think of global affairs as being essentially a dichotomy. You have the nation state, or you have global governance. We can quibble about the terminology. I don't particularly care exactly what the nomenclature is. I believe in the nation states. I believe in borders. I believe in cultures and religions, and that the world is typically best governed when people are able to govern themselves with people who, generally speaking, think, act, and believe like them there. Otherwise, you end up with a lot of the horrors, for instance, that contemporary Europe, the UK, Belgium, France are all experiencing when it comes to massive third world Islamic immigration. So that's my cards on the table there. The alternative, if you want to go down the rabbit hole of John Lennon's song Imagine, right, kind of a globalism creed de core. I mean, again, you want to call it globalism, universalism, I don't really care, but that's a thing. I mean, George Soros, his whole Open Society Foundation, it's literally called Open Society. Well, what's open? Well, among other things, the borders are open there. So again, we can quibble what to call it there, but it's very much a real thing and it should be criticized.
100%.
Yeah, it's also like anti-tribal people, anti-tribal rights, and just a big old corporatocracy and corporations are the least, they have the least liberty of anything in the world. You can be fired you don't even have to know the reason you're fired. It's fiefdom. Corporatocracy is fiefdom. So, and serfs, they have their serfs who are, it's like this hierarchical rule, Jewish people have always been for horizontal rule rather than vertical rule. And I think that all Candace and Tucker seem to really like vertical rule. I think it's really that ideology that we're fighting. And America's never, ever, although it has gone down that road, America's supposed to be of the people, by the people, and for the people, which is horizontal rule. And, I hope people will stay the course and not lose their faith, stay behind Trump, and not let themselves be divided by old superstitious bigotry that is just bubbling under the surface all the time because we've been fed it our whole lives. And I hope they'll stay smart and on top of it and not be dragged down into a cesspool that's way too hard to get out of.
Yeah, well said.
Amen. That's all that we can hope for, and it's incumbent upon all of us to push back in our own capacities. I get asked a lot, actually, are they going to prevail? Are the stirs of all this garbage, are the folks who are sort of kind of stoke the flames of this Jewish Christian holy war, God forbid. I mean, are they going to actually prevail here? And the way that they do not prevail is if you have enough good people who speak up and say, stop right there. And, that's what I'm trying to lend a voice to. That's what you're trying to lend a voice to. So we can only do what we can in our own individual capacities. But, call me naive, call me stubborn, starry-eyed, but I continue to believe that for the majority of the American people, that facts and reality still prevail, that we are not in an entirely post-fact, post-truth, post-reality environment. There are definitely a lot of people who have been so gaslit by the Candace Owenses of the world that they really are kind of down that rabbit hole. But for most people, again, call me naive, maybe I am, but for most people, I still think that the facts and reality really do still matter, and we'll fight it with everything we got, that's for sure.
Well,
and we have to remember, thank you so much for saying that. But we remember that God's the one that wins, and
yes.
God really likes that we love each other, not hate each other.
Always.
And we'll watch and see what he does. He's doing a lot of great things, and I think he's going to continue to do even more great things. Thank you so much, Josh. God bless you. Happy holidays. Remember to feel joy.
Chag Sameach, Roseanne. Really appreciate this. It's great to connect with you and look forward to joining again sometime.
Yeah, we'd love to have you back when there's not so many technical difficulties. I had so many questions I couldn't get into, so please promise you'd come back.
Looking forward to it. You bet.
Thank you.
God bless you guys. Thank you very much.
Oh, you see